Welcome to the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. This one presented by ARAI. Hey, did you know that all ARAI helmets are lined with an antimicrobial material? Yep, the interior liner gives you odor resistance, dirt resistance, and those little antimicrobials that you love so much. You can stay fresher, longer, and enjoy a comfortable ride in the latest ARAIs. Now that sweaty season is here, make sure you check out ARAIAmericas.com for more. Okay, in case you missed it, this podcast is our special MotoAmerica preview show. We're talking about round 4 of the championship, Road America. I'm Greg White, and the other guy on the line is Jason Pridmore. Hey, Jay, what is up, man?
What's up, G-Dub? I'm just hanging out at the house again and getting ready for a busy time. Another week on the road coming up, but just got done with the last 2 days at Buttonwillow Raceway, which was good. We had our weather out here has been really strange. It's been unseasonably cool and rainy and just strange, but we had 2 solid days out there with the good people from Let's Ride Track Days. They let me go out there and do some teaching, which is fun. And Buttonwillow, when was the last time you rode Buttonwillow?
It's probably been 5 years, I think. Something like that.
Such a fun track. I mean, it's just, to me, I don't know. I love it. I just think that there's some elements about it that are a lot of fun. So
it throws a lot of stuff at you, that track,
good.
Doesn't it?
No, it
you know
does.
What I mean? Like
yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
It's got a good variety, and they can split it up into a couple configurations. And
we did that. We ran it backwards the first day, Greg, and we ran after you go through those S's backwards. We ran all the way down to what they call Mazda, which is something that I'd never really done before. I've done it backwards, and I'd never done it clockwise. Second day, we ran it clockwise and ran kind of that same configuration. And they do a good job. They mix it up for their track day peeps and all that good stuff. And we had a lot of fun out there. And it's just nice to be back on a bike. And I actually swung a golf club last week. I didn't play.
Whoa!
I know, it's big news. I didn't actually play. I just hit a couple wedges. Went up and visited my boys up at the club. Said hi to them.
For those that may be listening to our podcast for the first time, why don't you fill them in as to why you haven't swung a golf club in a while?
Maybe we'll just leave it really vague. No, I broke my leg.
Well,
I broke my leg.
Broke his leg.
Yeah, I broke my leg. And so it's healing. It's still not right. When I say it's not right, it's healing. It's just, I'm at that stage now where you're kind of getting frustrated because walking is okay. Everything's kind of okay, but I can't get quite back to my normal life. I'm going to go see Dr. Ting the second I get back from Road America. I'm going to go up north and do a little riding up there. So I'm going to go see Dr. Ting for a day or two, and then hopefully be okay. Hopefully we can, walk around okay at Road America. I'm excited about this weekend because I love going to this track and going and watching. I'm glad it's 3 days. So on Friday I can spend some time watching the sessions. And yeah, I mean, what'd you do over Memorial Day? Anything exciting?
I went up to Salem, Virginia area. Actually, Roanoke is probably just north of Roanoke for a tournament called the Shrewd 25. So Shrewd's a sponsor of mine, and they put on a new and unique archery tournament. So I went up there and shot and got my ass kicked all over the place.
Wonderful.
But I got to shoot the course twice. And so from one day to the next day, I actually made a huge improvement, which is good. Just learning a different sport. It was really hilly, like you're standing on crazy footing. And so you had to just kind of figure out how to shoot in there. And it was good. And then, just came back here and been doing my thing ever since. So getting ready to go to the racetrack. Before we get into all the racing stuff, Jay, how about a little MotoAmerica news? Because a press release came out today about automaker Ford. They're jumping in as a 3-event sponsor, and they're going to have a variety of vehicles, I guess they're saying, like on display at the races. They will be at Road America, and then they're also going to be at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, July 12th through the 14th, and at Pit Race, August 23rd through the 25th. So it's great to have Ford in the mix for sure. Are you a Ford guy? You Ford guy, Jay?
Pretty much. For 15 years, I was a Ford guy. Like I had a van, I had an Econoline van that I think every racer at one point or another has a van, and I was always a Ford guy. So I always had Fords. And so yeah, for sure I was. And then I got a Sprinter, but that changed the world for me a little bit, getting that thing. But for the longest time, I was a Ford guy. What about you? You're a Volkswagen
guy. Yeah. Well,
you're a V-dub guy. G-Dub's a V-dub guy.
G-Dub's, but for the first number of years, I mean, it's really been for me Fords or V-Dub. Like my first car in high school was actually a Mercury Lynx, which is a Ford Escort. So, you know what I mean? Like Ford, it's the exact same car, just different badging. And then I had something called a Ford EXP Sports Coupe. I had a Ford Probe GT. That's the car that I bought when I bought myself as a graduation gift when I graduated from college. So yeah, no, I've had Ford Tauruses. Actually, when I raced in '96, I had a job where I got a company car and I had a Ford Taurus and I put a trailer hitch on the back of it and I used to tow my motorcycles all around. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
my company car.
That's rad.
Yeah,
That's so good.
Wasn't supposed to, but I was like, it's pretty good. But anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, I think I had 3 Ford vans over my life. So yeah, I think it's just neat that we're going to have Ford jump on board with the series, and it's just going to be another. It's nice to see some other branding come into the series. So having Ford there will be nice, and get a
They're
chance
obviously
to look
seeing
at some
value,
vehicles.
right?
Yeah.
They're obviously seeing value in the series, so it's good there. All right, Jay. So in this MotoAmerica podcast, we like to talk about what happened and what we think is going to happen in the races. So why don't we start off with our Superbike class, the EBC Brakes Superbike class. And last time we left the series was at VIR. If you've heard the other podcast, just to refresh your memory, in race number 1 of the EBC Brakes Superbike class, it was Cameron Beaubier who won 3.5 seconds over Tony Elias and Garrett Gerloff, a podium for him. JD Beach was 4th. Jake Gagne was 5th. Jake Lewis, Jake Gagne, David Anthony, Cam Peterson, Kyle Wyman, and Max Flinders, your top 10. On race number 2, totally different day. JD Beach, it was that wet, dry race kind of a thing, and JD Beach ended up winning in a very emotional race win, 3.7 seconds over Gerloff. Elias 34 seconds back, Skoltz in 4th, Lewis in 5th, Cam Peterson 6th, Josh Herron in 7th, Max Flinders, David Anthony, and Kyle Wyman. So, and the points championship, Jay, what we have at the moment is Tony Elias 24 points ahead of Cameron Beaubier, and then another 20 points, 4 points back is JD Beach. So that's where we are. But what do you think about Road America looking forward this great weekend? Which, by the way, we could have, kind of a mix of weather on Saturday, but the temperatures are going to be, and then it looks really good on Sunday, but the temperatures are going to be kept pretty low, like in the mid 60s. So what do you think?
I just think Road America just seems like there's always things that kick off there a little bit. I remember last year specifically, we've talked about it prior, that was kind of where the championship changed. This year for me, the championship's been different because Cameron's been up there for nearly the whole, he's been winning races and he's been up in the front. He got a lot of points in Atlanta, a lot of points in Texas, and we've documented pretty much how those 2 rounds have gone really bad for him, as he has talked about in the past as well. The 24-point gap you see between him and Tony is really due to him tipping off in that race at VIR. I mean, that's where the points gap looks a little bit bigger. I don't think Cameron's going to be too worried about that. I guess I'll find that out here in a few minutes, but I don't think that he's going to be too concerned about a 24-point gap because he's had to make up bigger deficits in the past. Right. And I think that when we come to Road America, we always kind of start to see things getting a little bit closer. I think that this weekend, there'll be 5 or 6 guys in that lead draft the whole weekend long. And just see how it goes. The weather always is a factor at VIR. It can always be, I think I saw where Saturday it might be a little bit bad, but I heard Sunday is going to be
you mean at
good.
Road America? Yeah.
Sorry, did I say Road Atlanta? Did I say Road Atlanta?
No, you said VIR. You said VIR.
Greg, I'm losing my mind. I'm not even kidding you. I'm losing it a little bit.
Well,
maybe
I mean, I know you've had
a head or something.
You've had a crazy schedule as of late, and I'm like, dude, podcast, let's go podcast. So
no,
me, for sure.
Yeah, it's sorry everybody for just like tapping out for a second. Yeah, Road America. That's where we'll be. Make sure you don't go to VIR. We'll be at Road America.
Don't go to VIR.
Gosh, sorry. Yeah. But yeah, I think the weather's always a little bit of a coin flip up there, but these guys are all ready. Now we've had some rain races, or there anyways. They've had some practice sessions in Atlanta in the rain. They've whatever. It was funny because this weekend riding, it rained for like just a little part of the beginning morning the first day, and Bryce Prince lives 20 minutes from the track. He saw it was going to rain, so he went out and rode 2 sessions in the rain and then packed up and went home by like 10:30 or 11. I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I just got to get more time in the rain." So,
oh wow,
yeah, California getting rain is just pretty unusual. But I don't think anybody's going to be worried about the championship points at this point. It's too early in the season.
Okay, if you say so. I think for me, I'm going to be taking a close look at Yosh just to see what a year, because if you remember, obviously Tony was leading the championship. It looks like he had walked away with it. Dunlop introduces that new soft front, the new big rear, and then all of a sudden Cameron leaves Road America with the championship lead last year, and ensued months of struggle for Yosh. So this will be our first race that we have returned to a track where they have the same tires. So obviously they've got the bike working really well. But if you remember last year, Tony would come out of turn 3 and he would just wiggle it wasn't quite a tank slap, but the bike was loose, kind of like what we saw at COTA this year. So it's not like it's completely dialed out of the motorcycle because it was happening at COTA, but it's going to be very, telling to me if he's coming out of turn 3 and watching him go down that straightaway the first time, because I think what they've done at Yosh, Jay, with Tony Elias's motorcycle at this point is just kind of go, okay, well, listen, it's going to shake, it's going to wiggle in order for you to get it to do the other things you want. So he's going to deal with it. But
it's kind of like Melandri was last year on the Ducati, in World Superbike. It was kind of the same type of thing that we saw of him. And when you and I were calling the stuff at COTA and they put that other shock in, that's when we really started to notice it going down that back straightaway at COTA. Was the thing was really wobbling around and moving. But yeah, I think if it's something that becomes a consistent that doesn't really bother you and it's really helping you, whatever the setup is you've put on the bike, if it's really helping you in all the important areas that you feel you're okay, then you just kind of hold on down a straightaway. I think for a lot of us and the viewers at home, thinking of a bike shaking like that at 190 mile an hour, it probably doesn't really do our confidence much good. But but I think if you get used to it, right, Greg, and you see the benefits of what you're doing and it's sorted out other things, then you just kind of live with it and you run it.
I think so, as long as it's predictable. Yeah. All right, so I mentioned, obviously, that last year Cam took over the points lead when we left Road America, but I did have a chance to get a hold of Cam. We talked this morning, and I asked him to tell us what the difference is from last year heading into this year.
I'd say they're just a little bit of everything. I think the way we started off this season was a lot better than we have the past few seasons. Just kind of getting the ball rolling, and by this time last year, I didn't even have a win. So, and we have a couple wins under our belt. We're still a little bit behind Tony in the points, but I really like the rest of the tracks moving forward throughout the rest of the MotoAmerica season from this point on. So we've always had some pretty good success at Road America. It's just, I feel like it suits my style. It suits my my R1 style, and I just love the place. Like it's an amazing track. It makes for really, really good battles, and I'm just looking forward to it, man. So last year, this was the first track we got the new or the softer front Dunlop, and then the bigger rear tire, and I feel like that kind of jump started our weekend, because our bike adapted to that a little quicker than our competition. So I think it might be a little different this weekend, but I'm not sure. We're just going to go in as kind of the same objective as always, just try to put ourselves in the position to be able to try to win both races and be smart.
And Jason, I know that Cameron's had a good week last 7 or 8 days on the bicycle, and he's done a lot of moto. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of, going to Road America 2 on a confidence high with his training as well. So, yeah. I mean, but anyway, comments about what you heard from Cam on that?
Well, it just shows how real Cameron is. That's what I like about him, is because he realized that the Yamaha adapted pretty quick to that bigger rear tire last year. And, you brought it up just now, and it took me a minute to think about it, but you're right. The Yost thing will be really interesting, because last year, Tony was riding around problems pretty big time there, wasn't he? I mean, you could tell he was not comfortable. He was, kind of reinventing himself during the race, like trying to figure out how he could stay with the leaders. And it was an effort for him. And now going back, we're really going to get to see if Tony has that extra maybe half second in him that allows him to break away. I think it's a very, very difficult track to do that. And I think that there could be enough guys in that lead group that you can kind of stay in that lead toe. We always talk about big tracks that you can draft at. And this is another one of those places that some of the guys that might qualify on the second row in qualifying, even on a soft Dunlop qualifying type tire, they might find themselves go faster in the race because you can get such a big toe down some of these straightaways. So it allows more people to kind of stay involved, Greg. So you're right. And I think Josh Herron's going to be, last year we saw him in the lead group, in these lead battles, leading races on the Attack Yamaha. Now he's on that Yosh bike. And we saw what Tony and Josh did at Coda. It made it very difficult for anybody to do much with those two guys. And you kind of wonder if we'll get the same effect here.
Yeah, but to add to that too, then you have that motorcycle that Josh Herron was on last year underneath
JD,
JD Beach now. So I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, obviously there's some really good data that Richard Stamboli has. So I don't know. I think you're right. I think it's going to be 5 or 6, because if you throw Kyle Wyman in the mix, if Kyle gets used to these electronics quickly, meaning if the weather's good on Friday and they get good foundation data, like, that they need for the new electronics package, and that Ducati is as fast as we think it is, even in stock trim, because that bike's been opened up, then he might be a flying anointment, at least at the beginning of the race, because obviously it's going to take a little while to figure out how you get a Dunlop tire to go the distance on a Ducati. So I'm not saying all of a sudden Kyle gets electronics, he's going to be right up in the mix, but Skoltz could be.
Jake Gagne could be on the BMW. We know that bike's fast. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like we have this conversation a lot, but there are certain tracks where it's more valid. Like, I think when you go to Sonoma, you'll see some different separations. When you go to Laguna, you see some different separations. But when you have these tracks that are fast, and Coda is such a poor example of a fast track because of the types of corners that you like, the first gear turns and things. Road America is so much more flowing. We don't really have like slow corners per se. Turn 5 is kind of a slow corner in the chicane, but they're linked by a bunch of sort of medium fast, very flowing turns that I think a lot of guys can ride through. And I feel that it allows people to stay in that draft a little bit more. So, places like Road America will have a tendency to get close racing like we see in all our classes. So yeah, you're right.
All right. So I asked Cam, because you kind of touched on this, and I was kind of giggling because your answer is kind of his answer, but I asked him if being 24 points back in the championship and no new tires and anything new or drastic coming the way, if it's time to panic in the championship or not.
We've definitely been worse off, so we're definitely not sweating yet. We're not stressing yet, but yeah, it's definitely time to buckle down, start trying to tick some race wins off, and also be smart, So yeah, I feel like we're in a good position though. I got Garrett's going really fast, JD's going really fast, Matty Schultz, Herron. Like, there's a lot of guys that could that could win a race. So as you've seen, we've had 4 race winners in the first 3 rounds of the series, and I think that's pretty amazing. It's going to be a dogfight, but it's going to be fun.
And so he's saying the same thing we are, which is, let me back this up a little bit, Jay. So when you race Daytona, there was all this chat, right? Like, oh, if you got to be third. If you're in a group of people, you'd be third at Daytona, and you come out of the draft, you coming around the tribal, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't really seem like that applies to Road America, does it? It's just like, because I think if you lead at Road America, as long as you have a quick bike, you can kind of set the pace in the final corner. And if you check up a little bit, you can park people and disrupt their drive a bit. It's tricky because we don't have rear view mirrors or anything, but I don't know. It's anybody's game as long as you can stay in the draft.
During our race call last year, I even said that Tony definitely had the fastest bike last year, and he was able to draft people at will, and the Yamahas were not capable of kind of drafting him. And we watched that race over and over and over. And when Tony went underneath Cameron on the last lap, going into turn 1, I was actually a little bit surprised, because then it's giving everybody else an opportunity to fire back at him, where I felt like he probably could have followed Cameron coming out of the last corner on the last lap and drafted past. I don't think that the Yamahas have the outright speed to be able to make it from the last corner to the start finish line if Tony or Josh are right behind Garrett or Cameron coming to the line. That's just my gut feeling. It's a different run to the flag at Road America than it is at Daytona, Greg. As you know, you get to 5th and 6th gear pretty early before you get to start finish line at Daytona. I believe we're clicking 6th gear at Road America probably just before they come across start finish line. So it's a different type of run. And the chicane, if you remember, is a lot more flowy and fast coming to the line at Daytona from back in the day. So it's just a little bit different. I think, though, that you hit on something that if I'm maybe riding the Suzuki, I would almost feel like if I can control my apex speed at the last corner on the last lap, and I can get out of there clean, I don't really feel like there's anybody that could draft me other than maybe a teammate. So I think that that's going to be something that Yosh will definitely have in their favor here. It'll be interesting to see how during the races this weekend, how that plays out and what Cameron's strategy is in that. I think that that's why we saw Cameron take a shot at Tony last year in Canada corner. Probably a little bit of red mist from what happened in turn 1, but probably also knowing that he can't control the race from second place behind Tony coming out of the last corner. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
it should be a lot of fun.
I think it'll be good to watch.
Yeah. I wanted to know from Cameron about his Yamaha R1. If you've heard this podcast before, Cameron said they didn't do any testing really in the off season for new bits and pieces. Of course, they tested, they rode, but there wasn't anything new really to try. And, things seem to be going really well for them. So I wanted to know, is it any different from last year? Are they working on anything specifically to make him go faster?
I would say the way the bike sits is pretty similar to how we raced it all year last year. I mean, we obviously changed little stuff like slide the forks up or down in the clamps, depending on what track we're at. But for the most part, it's pretty similar. I think this off season we've been working on just gaining some braking stability to make the bike a little bit more raceable with Tony and Josh and Matt, like some of the our competition. And I feel like we really gained something, like we really found something. And I think it's definitely some in the setup, but Zemke's been helping me with some stuff too, just with like some body positioning. As funny as it sounds, like I've been racing road racers for a long time, but just every little thing helps when you're racing these guys. So I definitely feel like we found some stuff, and I felt pretty comfortable on the first 3 rounds of this of MotoAmerica with what we've been doing. I've been able to be a little bit more racy with those guys and make some passes when I haven't been able to in the past. So that makes me feel good going into the rest of the season.
Are there ever any moments when you're on the brakes, like you have to go in deeper than, say, a Tony or a Josh Heron or whatever, and you just get butterflies or get like, oh, is this going to stick? Like a track day person would if they go into a corner too hot.
You're getting in hot and your butt's puckering, and you end up just going straight into the inside of the corner. And you're like, oh, well, I could have gone in deeper, or I could have hit a little wider line, So it's always tough passing those guys, and it's really tough. Like Road America, I remember last year. I remember like the exact moment. We're halfway or a little past halfway in the race, and I was going down the back straight, and I see Josh and Tony. They're just beating on each other, just stuffing each other left and right, and I'm just like, oh man, like I got to get up in there and get my elbows up and start getting crazy on the brakes with these guys if I have any chance at winning this thing. So. And it obviously got a little crazy there at the end, but it's tough to kind of make that change in your brain halfway through the race, and especially racing 2 guys up front. If you're racing 1 guy and like you guys are passing each other back and forth on the brakes, like that's a lot easier than trying to get creative and pass, being in third and passing second, and being worried about running into the guy that's in first or something like that because you guys are so close. So. Road America always makes for good racing, that's for sure.
A lot to unpack there, Jason, but
it's good. And it's good to get inside the minds of what Cameron thinks about and lets you realize. That's why I said he's so real. He'll tell you, of course you get nervous. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, when those laps are winding down and you're sitting behind somebody and you're planning things, and that's what made Road Atlanta so interesting to us when we watched the race. was how hard Josh and Tony were going at each other. You and I were sitting there, we were looking at each other like, this is pretty funny. And Cameron, he's coming from 11th on the grid, and he actually had it pretty easy because those guys were hammering on each other so hard, it was kind of slowing the pace up. So it was allowing him to just sit back and kind of plan what he wanted to do. But having a plan and being able to put it into play it sometimes can be a little bit more difficult. And when you're racing against guys who are as good as the Herons and Tonys and all those guys, Garrett's, it does make it. I think you always have that little tiny bit of self-doubt of like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna do it. I think, and I think that's what Cameron's telling you right there, that, yeah, he gets the pucker factor for sure when he's running it off in there.
I think the other thing, though, that he just said it briefly when he was talking about, look, he's been racing a long time. The guy's obviously a national champion a couple times over, but he still wants to get some coaching or even needs coaching. And I mean, dude, let's just, you're a coach, you work with a lot of athletes. Like how much do you think coaching has really transformed the speed of athletes? Because when I came into the sport, it was like, wow, how you have a coach? Why would you need a coach? It was like almost a weird thing for people to have someone helping them at the racetrack. And now it's like very typical across all spectrums. I mean, even in the MotoGP ranks, they have, riders have coaches and stuff. So how important is that?
Well, I've thought it for years. I've been so lucky to be able to work with so many tremendous athletes. I think that what you're seeing now, though, is the type of coaches that you're getting are ones who have that race experience. They have the actual wherewithal. Take Jake Zemke, for example. That's who Cameron's talking about. This is a guy who's won Superbike races. Right? He actually beat Mladen in his prime. I mean, Jake was a guy who I hold in very, very high regard, who could pretty much jump on anything. I'm trying to think if there was anything that I really saw him struggle on. I mean, I believe he won the first 2 races for Michael Jordan down at Daytona. So the level of coaching that you're getting now, Josh Hayes is out there working with people. I mean, the experience level that you have in the people that are running through the paddocks, like Luca Catalora was looking after Rossi. And I mean, you can go down the line. There's guys that have really been there, that have really been in the depths of the championships that these kids are running in now. And sure, things are a little bit different now than they were when we were all racing. But a lot of the elements of the mental psyche and being able to identify with what you see when you're out there watching sessions, it's so much more relatable to a guy that is really stuck it in and been there through some of that stuff. And understanding a rider's psyche of self-doubt, or, one weekend it could be, there could be something going on away from the track that you've got to be able to get that rider's attention and go, look, we can put our time into that other thing. Let's just get through this weekend. And when you're on the bike for the hour and a half or 2, if you simplify things, having somebody like those guys in your corner, like a Josh Hayes or a Zemke, who have been through that pays dividends huge for these guys, for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's pretty much our Superbike stuff. But before I wrap that up, I want to, it was like, with all of that stuff that we just talked about out of the way, Cam and I were just talking, and I said, what do you think about the feeling at the MotoAmerica races? Because it seems to me that people are really into it and they're pumped about being at the races. What do you think?
Believe it or not, yeah, I actually feel like people are a little bit more pumped up. Like, just the pits in Virginia, like they just seem a little bit more excited and they know what's going on a little bit more. And before, they're just kind of walking through and just looking at just eye candy, like the bikes and stuff. So yeah, people are kind of come up and you can tell they're following it, like, oh, I saw this or that at the last race, and just good luck the rest of the season type of thing. I think that's pretty cool. And at Circuit of the Americas, I know that we had a pretty good first race, a pretty good battle to the end, and I think that really helped the second day because a lot of people stuck around after the MotoGP race, and it's really good that MotoAmerica is growing like that. So, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
And to add to that, Cam went to the Pro Motocross race down the street from his house, that first one, and he said it was different this year. A lot of people are like, hey, man, caught your race on Fox Sports 2, or, like just more people even in the industry talking about MotoAmerica, which is great.
Don't you think that's because a little bit, and it's not to blow the horn or anything, but don't you think it's MotoAmerica has really allowed people to engage a lot more in our sport? There's so many more options for them. And I think the paywall that they did, I cannot believe, again, it happened to me this weekend, how many people come up to me at the racetrack and say how great it is that they can just watch all the classes and they can watch the races and they can see their friends that maybe do some club racing and so on, Greg, that maybe otherwise they don't normally get to see except for on a computer with just nothing but live timing. Now they actually have a way that they can really see what's going on in all of our classes. So the fact that Cameron went to what was it, Hangtown, wasn't it? The first one up by where he lives, motocross.
Yep.
And he had so many people coming up to him. I got to say that it's kind of been the same. And I think that, when you go to a track day or whatever, I know that a lot of your weekends aren't around motorcycles right now, but if you went to a track day or whatever, Greg, you'd see the same thing. And I think it's because of what MotoAmerica's done about just kind of getting more exposure for our sport. It's been good. Listen, thanks for Cameron, obviously, as usual, for being a part of our podcast today. There was some other racing, as we know, G-Dub, that went on at VIR. SuperSport category is getting really interesting. What you and I thought might be a 2-horse race at the beginning of the year has really turned itself on its nose. We were lucky enough. We've got PJ Jacobsen back in our championship, and we were wondering when it was going to be that he was going to win. Well, it ended up being a race at VIR, race number 1 that was red flag, but we ended up getting it restarted. PJ Jacobsen went on to win it ahead of Escalante. And our old boy Josh Hayes on the podium, riding his wife's R6. Good to see Josh there. Awesome, right? Then we had Bryce Prince, Aguilar.
Sponsored by Geritol.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be great? He should go after that. Aguilar, Ort, Silva, Lucas Silva. Great run by Lucas Silva, finishing 7th in our first race there. McFadden, Giannotto, and Ashton Yates rounded out our top 10 there at the first race, Greg. I think that when I look back and I think about the weekend, it's definitely a huge weight off of the Celtic Racing team with PJ winning. The second day, it didn't go quite as well to plan, but it certainly did for Hayden Gillum, a guy that we thought would be kind of dominating the championship, has had it a little bit rough, but he won a rain race there by 9 seconds. Again, Josh Hayes on the podium, Sean Dillon Kelly in his first look at VIR, and after not being able to make the first race, makes the most of race 2. He ended up 3rd. Xavier Zayat, amazing, finishing 4th. McFadden, Max Angles, another tremendous ride from him. Really good to see him top 6. Escalante, PJ back in 8th. Ashton and Braden Ort rounded out our top 10. What have you taken away, Greg, from the first 2 rounds of SuperSport?
I think really what you said, that it's anyone at this point. PJ leads the championship by 5 points over Escalante. Hayden Gillum back in 3rd. Bobby Fong in 4th. Sean Dillon Kelly. So for me, when you look at that championship spread, I'm sitting there going like, wait a second. This is a lot more intense. And now you've had Josh Hayes into the mix, who's only been there for 2 of the 4 races. He's 7th in the championship. It's
only 27
there's so many
back.
great elements. Yeah, exactly.
Back.
So when you're looking at this class, to me, there's a couple things going on. There's one, the expectation of Hayden Gillum. Like, was this going to be his coming out party? I think a lot of people may have crowned him national champion. Now, all of a sudden, you have this rising star in Sean Dillon Kelly, who is on a Suzuki, which a lot of us, that M4X Star Suzuki, I think a lot of us discounted the fact that Suzuki would even be as fast as it is compared to the Yamaha. And I think maybe the exit of Chuck Graves and Graves Motorsports has something to do with it, or the rules changes or whatever it is. But I thought Ridiculous Racing and Hayden would check out. But so you have the tale of that kid, Hayden. Then you have the tale of Bobby Fong coming back to the class, and he comes out and wins straight away. Now Sean Dillon Kelly, who we all agree is just a tremendous talent and human being. Then you throw in PJ Jacobsen coming back. Then you throw in Josh Hayes last week, which, by the way, was what? It was only a 2-day event. So I believe it was 3:30 on Friday when Josh and Melissa made the decision and got a little bit of sponsor help to get him into the race. And MotoAmerica said, yep, you're good to go. So I think it's been great. There's a couple, like heartbreaking stories in the class. I think like a rider like Benjamin Smith on the Team Norris Racing bike, he's had kind of a disaster of a year. The drama, though, Jay, let's not skip over the drama in SuperSport with Bobby Fong and what happened with that red flag. It was a really tight schedule. 2-day schedule only, no Friday stuff. And there was no lunch break, no time on Saturday for the fans to really interact with riders and all that kind of stuff. And the program was going smooth. And then there was a crash by Bobby. And then Bobby basically, it looked like from our vantage point that he laid down. Is that the easiest way to put it, right?
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And then the red flag came out.
I would agree with you. I think that, I even made a mention of it in the telecast. I said, did we just see a dirt track move kind of pulled there? And the problem is you always want to give the rider kind of the benefit of the doubt, maybe had the wind knocked out of him, whatever the case is. But MotoAmerica's, by their rule book, basically says if you're going to act concussed, we're going to treat you as you're concussed. And that's essentially what went down in the rules. The corner worker didn't feel like Bobby was responding in a way that was conducive to letting the guy get back on a motorcycle. So they sat him out of the first, the restart of the first race. Bobby was essentially the guy that caused the red flag, so he could have got back on and started from the rear of the grid. So there was some time there where we were kind of wondering what was going on. And then the second day, he had a really unfortunate fast crash on the front straightaway. There was some definite water. Yeah, right. It was raining really hard, and aquaplaning was definitely going to be something that could definitely happen, and it did. I think, Greg, when you look at the championship and looking at the points, the one thing I noticed that is just so bizarre is every one of our top 5 have literally had a throwaway race. And when I say a throwaway race, you look at like a PJ Jacobsen and a Richie Escalante. PJ only scored 10 points in the very first race at Atlanta because he ran off the track late, if you remember. And then in the second race here at VIR, he only scored 8 points. So those are kind of like 2 crap races. Richie Escalante, he scored 9 points in the second race at VIR, but he's second in the points now, only 5 back. If you look at Gillum, 6 points in the second race after he crashed, did something really silly getting back on the track at Road Atlanta. And then he crashes out of the first race very spectacularly, coming on the front straightaway, but he's only 7 points back. The guy that I think is really interesting in this case is Sean Dillon Kelly. He has a DNS. Because of the short time that they had to prepare his bike between qualifying and the race, they couldn't get him on the grid for the first race at VIR. He's only 21 points out of the lead in the championship, and he has a did not start. Obviously, the rain the second day helped him. But if they could have just got him back on the grid, he'd be up there probably second, third, maybe even leading the points if something crazy happens. It's those top 5 guys have all had those throwaway races. So what has it done? It's allowed guys like Josh Hayes to come into the championship and do 2 rounds, who's got 2 races where he's got no points, obviously, because he wasn't in Atlanta, and he's only 27 out of the championship. So there's so many interesting plots that are going to be interesting, and I think that this weekend at Road America, I think the plot continues to thicken even more because it'll just be interesting to see how the races turn out as far as how many guys are up in that lead group. Again, I think that we're going to see a bunch of them.
Yeah. Deep field too, in terms of entries, 33, at least the last time we looked.
Yeah.
There's my guess is there's going to be more heading into it. It's going to be PJ's, his first look at Road America in a while. Not a complicated racetrack, but something very, I don't know. I would say Road America's got some European flavor to it, doesn't it, Jake? Because
For sure,
it's not a lot of chicane, stop and go type stuff. So you might see PJ do really well. He's a small guy that can get off a corner really well. So
it's got to be a favorite. Don't you think it's got to be the favorite? Maybe the favorite of everybody. I know some people say Laguna, but I just got to think that it's just such a great track,
It is. As long as you have a motorcycle that can go.
Correct.
If you're a big dude on a motorcycle with hardly any horsepower, it's not the favorite necessarily.
I agree with you on that.
I'm just saying.
Because I actually remember saying that before, and I know where you went with the big guy thing, and I'm not gonna rail you right now because it's too early. But
well, I am 6'3", pal.
You are. That's what we're talking about. Your height, right? We are talking about
your height. My height. Yeah, my height.
We're talking about your height. Yeah. No, but I agree with you. I think I've been there when I maybe haven't been on such a fast motorcycle, shall we say, and it is anything but fun being at Road America and not having something underneath you that can get you down those big straightaways. But it is a beautiful place, and I know it's right up there in the top of the list, at least, of rider favorites.
just focused on Road America's Supersport, there are a couple great stories. Brandon Posh is back racing in the U.S., coming off of his Moto3 win at the British Superbike Series. Corey Ventura is going to be on a Yamaha. He's going to be back as well. So I'm pretty pumped. There's a couple of great stories that are coming into. Danny Eslick.
I was just going to say, we got Danny coming back. He's going to ride for Farrell Performance on a Kawasaki, which will be interesting. You're seeing a few more Kawasaki's involved. I really like the idea that Brandon Posh is coming back. He's coming off his wins over there in England. He feels like he's got a home there with the guys at TSE. Great team, great group, local team, just a couple hours from the track. They work extremely hard with very little. And so they do a tremendous job. And Brandon loves them. And then, of course, I think having Corey Ventura finally kind of making his 600 debut, I felt bad that the kid hasn't been there for the first couple of rounds, but it's nice to see that being as young as he is, he's going to get a chance to go to Road America. I expect him to be up in that. Hopefully Corey can get himself up in that top 10 group and be battling. I'm sure he's hoping for more, but what I would like to see from a young guy like him, first race out for him, is if he can find himself somewhere in that top 10 battle, that would be amazing. But what do we got? We got 30. You said we had 33 entries or something for that class now. So
32 right now on my current list, and I expect that to grow.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but I'm really curious to see how Brandon Posh will take the experience that he's getting in England, especially the confidence in Moto3, and then bringing it to the Supersport class. We know he can race, but I just want to see if he can take what he's got on the Moto3 bike and bring it to the to Supersport. And he, I know he got to test the TSE bike.
Well, he tried to
beginning of the week.
I think he tried to, Greg, but it rained on him pretty hard. So he's probably got some rain riding practice at least. And since he's not a season entry and that kind of thing, it allows him to be able to go and practice, or at least be able to go shake down the bike and see what it was like. But I don't think the weather was tremendous for those guys. So I don't know how much, if any, dry time he got. Obviously, being on the road yesterday and things, I wasn't able to kind of reach out, even though I probably should have. And but he's going to be a factor because the kid can just get on anything and ride it. That's what makes Brandon kind of fun to watch, because he's gonna go give everything he has. And I think it'll be a good weekend for them.
So make sure you have the MotoAmerica Live Plus app. So it's a pay service. It's still available out there. You can go to MotoAmerica.com and then you can get hooked up with that, and you'll be able to watch the practices, the qualifyings, and the races as well. So that's a great way to do it there. MotoAmerica Live Plus. All right, Jade, let's move on to LiquiMoly Junior Cup, because in LiquiMoly Junior Cup, we have this young man named Rocco Landers, who was really just starting to own the championship. The first 3 races that we had, 2 at Road Atlanta, and then the first race at VIR, he won, and the VIR race was ridiculous. He came from dead last on the grid. You'll tell us that story, and was able to win by 0.023 of a second. 23 hundredths of a second was the margin of victory in that one. But for him, the day didn't go as well. The second day is Cameron Jones on a Jones Honda. It's a CBR 500, Honda's very first MotoAmerica win in any class. And even American Honda reached out to us to congratulate Cameron Jones, which I thought was really special and really neat. So for those that don't know the LiquiMoly Junior Cup race and Rocco Landers, Jason, refresh our memories about race 1, because that was something else.
Well, race 1, we noticed that he didn't get out for the sighting lap. And basically what ended up happening was he was a little tardy to his pit. Let's just say Dad was looking for him, didn't know where he was. By the time pit lane had closed for the sighting lap, they realized then that, okay, look, let's just relax. You got to start from, you're going to have to start from the back of the grid now. You're going to go out for your warm-up lap, and you're going to have to start from the back. And, what he did is he just rode a very mature race. And the fact that a couple of guys at the front, Dallas Daniels and Kevin Almeida, those guys were battling pretty well, and they had Hunter Dunham in there for a majority of it as well. But those guys battling were allowing Rocco they're basically, the best time that Almeida did was a 36.9, and the best time that Rocco did was a 36.9. But there were laps where these guys were running 38s, and Rocco was still running low 37s, and he was just gaining 2 seconds a lap once he got clear of that big battle for fourth. And he allowed those guys allowed him to catch up. But he was just a bit tardy for his. It's a mistake I'm sure he's not going to make again. And then the second day, yeah, I mean, I think you see like a Cameron Jones win, and it was so cool because we always like to see new guys win, and especially the fact that he was on an off-brand that nobody's won on, meaning the Honda. That's something that he'll always be able to hang his hat on. He's the only Honda out there. But what it does for a rider's confidence, you kind of feel like, hey, I've won a race now. I belong. I can get up front. And we can't discredit the fact, too, that Jackson Blackman rode amazing in that race. He crashed before that red flag came out on the first lap. He had gone down. They had put the bike back together last minute. They put him on reins. It was the right call by the crew and everybody. Jackson went out on rain tires. But the problem was he lined up in the wrong grid spot. So there was a penalty assessed to him after that still allowed him to be on the podium. He ended up second. But we can't take anything away from Jackson. But Cameron Jones is probably going to go to Road America feeling a little different when he pulls through that gate than he has kind of anywhere else, Greg. He's going to have that little bit of feeling of like, hey, I have won a race. I have done okay. And he'll take that confidence and he'll bring it to Road America.
Yep. And I think it's going to be a good race. I am very interested to see, though, if the draft will allow the rest of the field to stay with Rocco, because I just think Rocco Landers, when he's on point and has dry conditions or just has the normal conditions, I think he's very difficult to beat this year. And there's no doubt 3 wins in 4, with the 4th race being a rain race, dry, rain, kind of a weird race, is like, so far so good. It's the Rocco Landers show. But Dallas Daniels has done everything to keep himself in this championship. So it's like Rocco 7 ahead of Dallas, and then it's another 34 from Rocco to Jackson Blackman. So he's 27 points back. He's not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. Then you have Gage Reese, Dominic Doyle, all in the mix. Cameron Jones, who scored like a point, then 5 points, then 2 points, and then he scored a full 25. That's where I'm hoping Cam. I'm not expecting Cameron Jones to come out and win another race in the dry straight away. He's the only Honda in the field, Jay. There's different weight restrictions and things on that 500. But what I want to see is to get him out of that 15th through 10th. You know what I mean? Like, if that confidence can pole vault him up into that 10th through 1st position, maybe hovering around that 5th and 6th spot, then we could start seeing him on a more consistent basis, start gathering some more points, and possibly by the end of the season, see Cameron Jones fighting for, that win. So it's a fun class to watch. It's really fun to watch Rocco Landers race, though.
No, and I agree. And I think a lot of these
corner speed, yeah,
he's got a lot of corner speed, G-Dub, for sure. I think that if you're a lot of the other riders, you never, you want to be able to put it to a guy. You want to be able to go after them. You want to be able to do the things that you need to do to try to win. But I feel that what you really have to do is not step on each other early in the beginning of these races. You can't go charging up the inside of guys and creating gaps and things like that if you want to try to stay with somebody like Rocco, because he has proven pretty much so far that he doesn't make mistakes in the dry. He's very comfortable leading races. I mean, he races every weekend. I haven't heard anything in the last few weekends, mind you, because there hasn't really been anything out in this area. But that said, he's comfortable. He's comfortable leading, and he's going to be even more comfortable if he can ride 90% and see that the guys behind him are trying so hard to keep up, that they're creating gaps, and his lap board keeps going +1, +2, +3. Dallas has shown that he's got the speed. Almeida has shown that he's got the speed. Lap time wise, if you look at lap time wise at VIR, they had run just as quick a lap time as had Rocco. So when you look at some of that stuff, it's now a matter of just kind of organizing yourself, mature almost as a rider, if you will, and realize that you can't win the race on the first 2-3 laps. You can definitely create some chaos, but if it's not kind of to the right guy and you let him get away, it's going to make it a lot harder for you to catch him if you let him be as comfortable as he's been.
Very interesting, because I know as a racer, especially a young racer, all you want to do is just get out front. But what you're saying in a way too is, look, if you don't have the pace to break away, as long as you feel like, I don't know how to explain this. Like, it's weird, because I understand the mentality of wanting to lead, that whole Josh Hayes thing. I want to set the pace and stuff. But to start racing each other up early on in the race and letting Rocco get away doesn't seem like the right thing to do if you understand who you're racing against at this point, which is Rocco. I mean, the only way to beat Rocco heads up is to disrupt his flow. That's, you know what I mean? Like it's the old, what Valentino Rossi did to Marquez and, what Colin Edwards did to Troy Bayliss. Like you've got to, when you know that rider is got a better setup or is faster than you are, then the only way to really put them behind you is to race them, and that's where like exactly a JD Beach, right, was trying to rough up Garrett Gerloff. And yeah. So that's part of the learning process, I think, of these riders, and hopefully the people that surround them, the Kevin Almeidos and the, like the group of people that are right there in the mix with Rocco are going to start to teach them like, hey, let's just not concentrate on going fast. Let's concentrate on how do you race Rocco Landers? Where is he fast? How is he doing it? And then if you can't do it exactly, how can you disrupt his flow? Doesn't mean knock into him, but for sure, you've got to figure out a way to race the cat. So,
well, you can do it strategically too. I mean, the race I always think about is Stoner at Laguna Seca with Rossi. If you remember that weekend, Stoner led every practice, smoked everybody in qualifying, was obviously the fastest guy, and Rossi just wouldn't let him lead. Do you remember, like every single time? Every time he came at him
off the inside, coming out of the corkscrew and all that stuff. Of course.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like kind of a famous race, and Stoner whinging afterwards. And, he crashed in turn 11 and talked, whining about Rossi. I mean, it's racing. I hate to break it to you. It's racing. And if you don't have the best package underneath you sometimes, or you feel like the guy's just that much better, you've got to do what you got to do. And it wasn't like Rossi was punting him out of the way or anything like that. It just was what it was. But there's a tactful way of being able to race somebody, just like he was being raced that day. So I think LiquiMoly Junior Cup is definitely going to be exciting. I hope that we can have 3 or 4 guys up in that lead group, but we will see, Greg. Moving forward, 1,000 Superstock race at VIR was actually a really entertaining race. We had 3 guys obviously going for the lead nearly the whole race. Michael Gilbert comes out on top of Stefano Mesa by a mere 0.3 of a second. Travis Wyman looked like he had something for Michael there, but made a mistake on the last lap, but still was able to get good championship points, put himself third. Andrew Lee, who was battling a pretty bad injury on his finger, he ends up 4th. And then we go back through the field. We had Ryan Jones, who we saw crash in Atlanta, so it was nice to see Ryan back and on the grid and getting that top 5. Bradley Ward, Southern Cal guy from England originally, he ends up 6th. Rhett Norman, Brian Land, Greg Lute, and John Dunham, they ran out our top 10 finishers. And I think that, we're starting to see in this category, we're starting to see, much like the twins class, these two categories last year didn't have that many entries. How many entries did you say we had this weekend, G-Dub? We had 30.
We have 30. Let's see, for
30,000 Superstock?
29 for Superstock. 29 entries. So far this season, we've had 24 people compete in the class. Now 29. So that's, and again, we get local people. So it's getting popular. There are people racing thousands out there in club racing, and they're looking at the stock 1,000 class saying, hey, wait a second. This is a really good possibility. And, Gilbert leads the championship by 7 points over Andrew Lee, who's the defending champ. And then Stefano Mesa is only 2 back from him. Travis Wyman 4. So it's pretty close. Right now you have 16-point spread for the top 4 and 27 for the top 6, Jay. So I just want to make a comment, though, about Michael Gilbert and his win in stock 1,000, because we watched that race. I mean, Gilbert was hounded by Stefano Mesa. Hounded. The margin of victory was probably one of the largest margins that we saw coming across the line, which was 0.3 of a second.
Yeah.
And Gilbert really, dude, under pressure, rode a masterful race. He really did. After he finally took the lead, he didn't give up the lead for many laps, did he? Like, I don't know. Like, he just led.
Just led the whole way, and it looked like Mesa was doing, again, Stefano's, you hate to call him a veteran at this point, but he is, because he's been around for so long, and it's great to have him be part of our championship. He was doing the right thing. He was sitting there and he was watching the whole time. He was seeing what Michael was going to do, and Travis was doing the same. Both of them looked like there was places where everybody was a little bit better than each other in certain spots. So, and then Andrew just was on the back of him and just just was kind of chipping away, and I know he was suffering.
Yeah. But that's it. The besides Michael's win, the ride of that race has to be Andrew Lee, because Jay, describe what happened with Andrew and what he was racing on. But I will say this before you get into that: this ride by Andrew to score 4th place points, if he wins this championship, it's going to be because of the effort he put in at VIR. Hands down.
2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior, he was doing an AFM round and fell off in qualifying, and basically, for the most part, completely ground away his pinky finger. He'd grinded it down to the bone. The photo he sent me, you could actually see the joint in his finger. And of course, originally he was basically pronounced that he wasn't going to ride Road America. And his original text to me were, "That's okay. Like, I've got plenty of time for the rest of the season. We won the first race. Even if I lose 25 points here, the most I'll be is 20 points back in the championship. So I'll be okay." But I basically told him, I said, "Look, just chill on the finger. Don't do anything." And he was pretty much sworn to not do any exercise or anything, because they didn't want any sweat anywhere. They didn't want his finger to his hands to perspire or any of that stuff. So the fact that he was on the grid, and the fact that he wasn't doing as well as he felt like he could at VIR through practices and stuff, I had to keep reminding him that, hey, 3 weeks ago you had told yourself it's okay to sit on the couch. You're here. Anything you do is a bonus. So for him to finish 4th, I agree with you, is great. And I think that moving forward for Road America, he'll be more fit. Obviously, his finger's a lot better than it was. I think that this race again has got some very interesting things coming into it, because we're seeing some people, Greg, come out again. Like, we're going to get to see Wyatt Ferris out here from California, Corey Alexander as well. Corey has been doing some dirt track stuff, but I think the one that everybody's kind of talking about is Jeff May is going to be racing in the 1,000 super stock class. So when you look at the 3 or 4 guys that we had at the front at VIR, and you add in those 3 names that are capable of running at the front, and I also believe Miles Thornton, we haven't seen, it's really sad, but we haven't seen Miles Thornton at his best yet. He fell off in Atlanta, had a problem down in turn 1 at VIR that didn't look like any fault of his own. And I think that when you look at it, he hasn't put his best foot forward. He's going to be hungry there. Again, you're going to see 8 or 9 guys in the front of this battle as well, I believe.
In terms of manufacturer participation in the stock 1000 class, it's as rich as it gets, because you have Kawasaki's, Yamahas, BMWs,
Suzuki,
and you got a Honda CBR 1000R lining up for this. Well, is going to try to qualify, I should say.
Yep.
So it's a good blend. I mean, the only bike we're really missing that's on the grid up full time would be a Ducati in this class. But it's nice to see. It's getting deep. It's getting more recognition as the stock 1000 class, and compared to the participation last year it had, I mean, it's absolutely getting crazy. And it might be the region too. You have a couple guys here, like Zachary Schumacher, who's from Wisconsin, and let's see, Tony Storniolo. Hopefully, Tony, I said your name right, from Oak Creek, Wisconsin. So you have a few riders in the area. Samuel Cook is coming in from Madison. So obviously you could see the strength. There's somebody in from Michigan. So the strength of that area as well is showing in some of the entries that we're getting in the Road America Stock 1000 class.
Yeah,
so
Road America, everybody loves it. And isn't it? Is this, I believe, Greg, too, this is a double race for them this weekend.
It's a double race, yeah. It's a double race for them, too. So that's what I was saying. MotoAmerica Live Plus app. Get on MotoAmerica.com. Buy that thing, because it's got to be great. All right, Jade, let's move on to the Twins Cup class, because in Twins, it definitely got interesting. They had Michael Barnes on the Ducati had checked out the first time that they raced. And then we thought he was going to do the same, but it didn't turn out that way for Barney. Actually had a DNF on the quarterly racing Ducati, the only one in the field. And lo and behold, our national champ, Chris Parrish, ended up winning. Curtis Murray in second. That was only less than half a second. That was a great race. Drake Beecham in the mix, beats out Robert Fisher by a tenth of a second for third. Joe Blasius in fifth. Ned Brown in sixth. Chris Bays in seventh. Jerry Reeves in eighth. Daniel Adams and Chris Lilligard rounding out your top 10 of a field that was in the 30s, by the way. You watched that race. What'd you think?
Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that first off, with Barney breaking, it definitely made it to where it's going to tighten up the championship. The thing I love about this class is that I don't know. You and I talk about this, and we don't mean to have any kind of shortcomings with anything, but last year we weren't really sure how elevated the levels were in this class because we didn't really get to cover it, you and I, so much. We didn't get to cover the championship, so we didn't really get to watch it as much. But then this year, with some names like Barney coming in and some of the younger guys like Drake Beecham and Joe Blasius and Andrew, Alex Dumas and some of them, all of a sudden it kind of, if you will, it added some more ideas of what this championship could be. And I think it's tremendous that it looks to me like Chris Parrish I love his setup. I love what he's done. I think it's great that he's defending his championship, and he comes out and he wins that race, and him and Curtis Murray went at it pretty hard. If you get a chance to stick around and watch this race, it's actually pretty entertaining because everybody in this class rides really hard, even though the bikes aren't making, 190 horsepower and things. The racing itself is pretty fun. And if you watch even in some of the battles in the middle of the field, they're great as well. Attrition so far this year has been kind of the name of the game. I say that with Barney. Obviously, we talked about him. Dumas had a horrible weekend at VIR, crashed twice, didn't even make the race. So, hopefully he's going to be healed up. We saw Justin Felice. He didn't finish either at VIR, and he was kind of one of the guys that were up front there at Atlanta. So I think that when you look at it, it's going to be an interesting championship to watch throughout the year. But I feel like the elevation of the class has gotten better. I think the equipment's gotten better, especially in those first 10 guys or 12 guys. I feel like the equipment's gotten more professional looking and better as well. So it's added some real legitimacy to the championship.
Now, I will say that Michael Barnes had a 133.157 before his exit of the race, so 33.15. Chris Parrish's fastest lap of the race was a 33.18. So you're only talking 0.03 of a second difference. And Curtis Murray, who finished second and is second in the championship, was at a 33.2. So all showing that, the Ducati, it's not just the bike with Michael Barnes on it. We know what kind of rider Michael Barnes is, but Parrish and Curtis Murray on those Suzukis getting after it. Parrish does lead this championship by a slim 5 points in his bid to try to get that number one plate back, where Barney, because of his DNF, after he had two dominating performances in the first two races, which of course were at the Suzuki Championship at Michelin Raceway, with that DNF, he's only 11 points back. And Drake Beecham's clawing his way in it too, Jay. So Drake Beecham's only 22 points back. So it's a fun championship to watch. I agree with you 100% that the equipment looks good. You could definitely see that a lot of racers in this class have stepped it up. It's a deep, deep field because of local participation. I'm not sure how many of these riders are traveling all over the country for it, but I thought that the participation might drop off a little bit more once we left the Southeast because of how strong,
how big it is there, huh?
Yeah, the strength of the program here. But that's our biggest class again, 33 entries, at least our knowledge right now of how many people are going to enter that. So make sure you go check out MotoAmerica.com. Hopefully, we'll see you at Road America this weekend. If you're thinking about it, weather's going to be good. Ticket prices are, really reasonable. We're open for business Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday, of course, we have practices and races. A program nearly mimics itself on both days, so you definitely want to come out and join us. Weather looks good. Road America is spectacular, Jason, right? The food is great. The fans are great. You can camp there. I mean, there's just no reason not to go to Road America. I don't even care if you're busy. Cancel your plans and come to Road America. Right?
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. And we always see a bunch of fans lining the fences. And I'm excited about getting up there. Leave tomorrow. I'll be there Thursday. And, whether the weather's great or not, it's always good. But the weather's going to be a lot better than I think it was forecasted for a week or so ago. So that's going to be awesome. And I'm actually sticking around, Greg. And I know that you're contemplating it too, sticking around for Monday, Tuesday. You and I are going to do some riding. We got to be big shout out to the guys from Sport Bike Track Time. Trevor, all those guys have been amazing at just saying, yeah, you guys come out and have some fun with us. And Hammer Time Sports, I got a couple Kawasaki's coming for us to go rip around, G-Dub. And
so pumped.
I got to get you back on a bike, G. Got to do it.
I know.
So there's going to be a lot of people wanting to take a shot at you. There's going to be a lot of people wanting to take a shot at you. You know,
well, what
a big
does that
target.
Mean? Should I bring should I bring an onboard camera so I can do a lap and then post it, and then people can sit there and time
just
the lap?
Rail you for an hour.
Me.
Yeah, just do it.
You know what I mean?
A lot of hate in the world.
Never know. No, it's awesome that all these people are stepping up, and yeah, I know. But I wonder for Sport by Track Time if there's any slots even left at Road America. I mean, more than likely not. But if you want to come out and ride, Jason's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Come out and join us because the weather looks good. And, you know, I think maybe I'm feeling a little bit sick. Yeah. Call in sick on Monday and Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday. I think you might have a sick day coming. So we thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Hopefully you will spread it out, spread the word. Let people know that you're listening to it. We appreciate it. We see you on social media. There are some questions we're getting that we're going to get answers to pretty soon. So keep the questions coming. And don't forget our next week's podcast. We're going to be talking about MotoAmerica and what happened at Road America. We're going to talk about MotoGP, American Flat Track, Motocross, and so much more. So, Jay, I think that'll do it for us on this MotoAmerica specific podcast. Why don't you take us out? What do you got to say, son?
See you in Wisconsin, brother.